Welcome to Turning Moments into Movements, where each week we explore simple but powerful wellbeing tips to help you live a balanced and fulfilling life. My name's Leanne Ross, your host and the founder and coach of my business, Happyluia, and I will be taking you through today's 15 minutes of insight and inspiration. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to this week's episode. We are going to be discussing coping strategies today. And what would be really helpful is if you haven't listened to the last few episodes, go back and listen to them first, because these are almost steps. So I would really encourage you to listen to the signs and symptoms of stress and anxiety, then to listen to how to identify your triggers, then focusing on how to manage your triggers. And this is specifically going to be covering coping strategies. As always, any questions, let me know. Let's just dive right in. So I always say to my clients, when we're talking about coping strategies, people tend to overthink them. They tend to overcomplicate them. What actually is a coping strategy? It's really something that makes you feel better. And that's it. So when people say, when they're looking for specific coping strategies, absolutely, there's relevant ones to try and to test and to see what works for you. But ultimately, the main goal is to make yourself feel a bit better in yourself. And when we are focusing on alleviating the stress around triggers, so we're talking specifically about negative triggers, it's really positive to have a bank of coping strategies that we know works, that we know is going to be helpful, because that's going to help us to really move forward when we do experience triggers. So what I've done is I've written out 5 different kind of quite generalized ways to reflect on specific coping strategies. And what I've done is I've put them into subtopics. And we will go through each of them. And then, you can just start to experiment. And what I would really encourage you to do is to write these subheadings down and then write sort of a list of coping strategies that you either know work for you or ones that you're willing to try, because that would be really helpful to start to navigate and understand what coping strategies are going to be effective for you and what ones you're going to have in your own bank when you experience those triggers that really aggravate stress and anxiety within the mind and the body. So the first one I wanted to focus on, and this is a bit of a quirky one, but I feel it's so important, is when you are triggered, I want you to reflect on your energy levels. So is it a case of you've been triggered by something and you just feel really low? You feel really down, really low, you feel really lethargic, you just have no energy, you don't want to do anything. That's kind of the immediate after effects of being triggered. Or is it a case of you have a lot of high energy, you're really anxious, you're really jittery, you can't sit still, you're maybe pacing, feeling quite frantic? Try and match your energy with a coping strategy of the same energy or similar energy. So an example of this could be if you're feeling anxious and jittery and you can't sit still, get up and move. Go and burn off that energy. Whether it's dancing frantically in your living room, whether it's going out for a power walk, whether it's going out for a run, doing some sort of quick yoga stretches, do something that is going to help you to burn off that energy. Because what we don't want is, if you're feeling really, really agitated and you can't sit still, suddenly being asked to meditate in that moment is not going to be as effective as you want it to be. So the first one I would really recommend is to match that energy that you're already feeling. Similarly, if you're feeling, depressed, you're maybe experiencing symptoms of depression, you're maybe feeling quite low energy, match that. So, maybe sit and watch TV, maybe go for a bath, read a book, go for a lie down. And that can help to really manage the energy. What we don't want is, we don't want to do something drastic that will lead to you completely crashing. We don't want you to suddenly be forced to go out for a 10-mile run when you're feeling so low that you don't even want to get up. So that would be my first recommendation around coping strategies. Identify your energy level. And then what can be really helpful is just to raise it a little bit more. So an example of that could be when you are feeling that lower energy, you've maybe sat and read a book for half an hour, then start with intentionally raising your energy a little bit more. So it could be you start going for kind of a slow walk around your living room, or you maybe start doing housework, just something a little bit higher energy. And then I would encourage you to kind of go from there. And we don't need to go, eventually get to that point where you're like running around. Like, we just want to bring ourselves up on an even keel. And then similarly, when you're really high energy, you maybe have been like dancing about, then maybe do something that's still quite stimulating, but not as. So kind of reducing the energy levels a little bit. So an example of that could be you play like a game on your phone where you need to kind of use your mind a little bit more, so you're still active but you've consciously sat down. So this is something that I use with my clients all of the time, especially after sessions. I call them the emotional hangover. So sometimes when we're talking about, specifically challenging things, or sometimes even if we're feeling really excited and joyful because we're talking about, setting really great goals, our energy levels will inevitably change and be triggered in certain ways. So matching that, rather than having such a stark contrast that just feels unmanageable, is going to be a really great way to reflect on specific coping strategies that you can tap into that's going to match what you need in that moment. So that would definitely be my top one, but I do still have 4 more. So diving a little bit more into specific types of coping strategies. The second would be just stillness. So taking a moment, being still, perhaps lying down, lowering the lights, possibly meditating, sometimes just lying down or sitting up and taking 3 deep breaths, engaging in a bit of mindfulness practice, really being present in the moment. That can be a really good way to support coping strategies because it just helps to regulate the nervous system. If you're being calm, if you engage in something that's quite calming, naturally your emotions and body will follow suit. You'll start to feel more calm as well. The third one is movement. So we have kind of already covered this in terms of the energy levels, but there's so much research around how exercise and moving the body is really, really helpful to, once again, support you to feel less stress and less anxious. So engaging in regular movements, moving your body in a way that feels right for you. And what I would really focus on is doing movements that you actually like. What is the point in going to the gym as a coping strategy when you hate it? We're really looking at making ourselves feel better. So is it a case of you do love going to the gym, so you make a point of going there? Is it a case of you like to go for a walk? Is it a case of you find it really helpful just to do a bit of housework? You're still moving your body. Yoga, there's so many different ways to move your body. Put on some music, dance, whatever it is, I promise you, it will make you feel better. So that would be the third one, engaging in movement. The fourth one is distraction. Now, this specifically is an excellent way to support anxiety, particularly if you have just been triggered and you're kind of still in that moment. Distracting yourself with something is really, really powerful because it gives the brain something to focus on other than your anxious thoughts. Certain things that can be really helpful are fidget tools. So you can get them online for literally a couple of pounds or a couple of dollars. I use crystals all the time. It's very rare that I don't have a crystal somewhere near me or in my hand or in my pocket. Just something to kind of hold and almost imagining that you're putting all of your anxiety into that object. And that can be a really, really helpful way because, as I say, you're distracting yourself from your anxious thoughts. And we're not looking to suppress and ignore the anxiety, we're looking to manage it. And if you can do that by really inserting specific coping strategies that are helpful, go for it. So distraction is a really powerful coping mechanism. And then when you get to that point where you do feel more calm, then you can do the work. Then you can be like, okay, what went on there? How can I move forward? How do I want things to be different? What specific supports do I need for my anxiety? But we're just looking at the here and now around managing that immediate effects of being triggered. The last one is all about debriefing. And I say that to be quite generalised because debriefing is really just getting out what's in your head out loud. And you can do that by talking out loud to yourself. You can do that through, debriefing with someone, trusted friend, family. You can book in to speak to a coach or therapist, counsellor. You can journal. You could do voice memos for yourself. You could write a letter to yourself or write an unsent letter. A really good activity that a lot of my clients benefit from. Writing a letter to whatever triggered you, whether it was a person or an event, and just don't send it, just get everything out there. Really, really powerful ways to really kind of reduce that busyness in the head and just getting it out there. So talking it out or writing it down, whatever you feel you need. And really reflecting on these 5 strategies. So I'm going to kind of quickly read them out and I want to kind of summarise them into just one topic. So we've spoken about identifying your high and low energy and then matching that with a specific activity. We've spoken about stillness, we've spoken about movement, we've spoken about distraction and then debriefing. All of these have a common theme. They are self-care. Coping strategies are self-care. They're things that make us feel good. They're things that make us feel better. They are caring for ourselves. And when you reframe coping strategies to be self-care, just basically, you taking care of yourself, it kind of helps to simplify the situation, I feel, rather than overcomplicate something, because triggers and managing them are quite complex. So if we can break it down into tangible steps, then that's really great. So as I say, I would really encourage you to write down those 5 subheadings. So just to reiterate, sort of high and low energy activities, stillness, movement, distraction and debriefing. And then just reflect on what that looks like for you. start to put things down that you really enjoy doing, and then you have a list of coping strategies that you can tap into. If you have any questions about any of what I've just discussed, please reach out. I have all my contact details in the show notes. You can contact me on social media under the handle Happyluya. The spelling of that will be in the show notes as well. You can also contact me through my website. There's specific links there. And yeah, please connect. I love chatting to people. I also have loads and loads of coaching program content. So if you are interested to be coached by me or to engage in any of my new self-study courses, get in touch, have a little browse in the Happyluya shop. You do you, but really focusing and, reflecting on how you can support yourself to really turn your moments into movements. So really taking those small steps to bigger changes. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to chatting to you all next week. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Turning Moments into Movements. Why not check out coaching opportunities with me so you can really begin to enhance your moments into huge movements and begin to live the life you never thought possible? Details are in the show notes. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, leave a review and share this episode. Remember to also follow me on social media platforms through my handle Happyluya, where you will receive additional daily content. And finally, make sure you join us next week for more tips on how you can turn your small moments into life-changing movements.